come back to our main story. Members of NUMSA and the South African Cabin Crew Association at SAA have embarked on a strike. Now, the union and the airline are locked in a wage dispute. Unions are also unhappy at plans to retrench almost 950 workers. The mass action has forced SAA to cancel its flights today and tomorrow. For more on this, let's firstly join our reporter who is at the Cape Town International Airport. That's Aisha Ismail. Aisha, good morning to you. How's the situation looking at that side?
Well, good morning. It's rather unusually quiet here at Cape Town International Airport. We've been here since before 6 o'clock this morning. Now, normally, the early morning flights are often booked out. This morning, the SAA counters are empty. And I'm just going to ask my colleague, Balungile, just to pan to the side where you can see the South African Airways counters that are standing empty. You can see staff sitting idly because there are no passengers there. We've also checked the boards earlier, and the South African Airways flights are indicating as being cancelled. And I have been checking around with people, and on the other side, you know, the other airlines that are not on strike, there are some people there, but the airport is not jam-packed as it normally is on these early morning flights. Now, I also know that South African Airways did release a statement last night calling on SAA passengers not to congregate at the airports, but rather to stay at home and to check in online and to check the procedures to see whether they can be accommodated on other flights. And that appears to be the case here, where South African Airways passengers with valid airline flights did not come to the airport this morning and rather chose to stay at home and to rebook their flights on other airlines online. So very quiet here at Cape Town International Airport this morning.
Aisha Ismail, thank you very much. She's at the Cape Town International Airport. Let's remain with this story. We're coming to you live from OR Tambo International Airport, and this is where SAA has been forced to cancel its flights as workers embark on strike action. Joining me now is SAA's Acting Chief Financial Officer, Dion Fredericks. Mr. Fredericks, thank you very much for your time. How has the message to your passengers landed? Have you been effective in your view in telling them not to come to airports and rather looking at the terms and conditions on their tickets?
Good morning, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, we have been in contact with all our customers. We inform them that they mustn't come to the airport. As you can see today, there's very few customers around. We've also indicated to customers if they don't want to travel in the next 2 days, they can defer their travel. Any changes in terms of their bookings, there will be no charges for that. We've opened our call center. We've also opened our website where there's relevant information. We're working with our alliance partners, and where we can accommodate some of our customers on that, that's also in place. But it's a difficult situation. It's also a sad situation that we need to end up in this, and at this stage we're trying the best we can do to make sure that we can look after our customers as they are our priority.
Mr. Fredericks, let me ask you about this statement coming fresh from the press from Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan. And he was speaking in New York yesterday, and he says, I quote, SAA is not too big to fail. What do you make of that statement?
Yeah, I think it's important that we look at the country as a whole. Firstly, the fiscus are very constrained. We've seen this, it's been for the last 2 years. We've seen that in terms of the requirements that Eskom is currently required, that will take the bulk of what's available from the fiscus. In terms of SAA, it is a challenge.
Does that confirm that SAA is what some people have been saying, like Professor Yanni Rousseau, who says it was just a vanity project? Should this be shut down?
I think there's two parts to look at it, and you need to balance it ultimately. Firstly, if SAA closed today, there would be a significant gap. There will be a significant impact on the economy. And I think from a shareholder perspective, is in terms of priorities, there's only so much funds. And that's why the request to SAA was, how do you help yourself? As part of helping yourself, we have implemented a long-term turnaround strategy. And in terms of that strategy, we're trying to implement it. So it's important that we and Labour take hands. We have reached out to Labour from Tuesday to see if we can avert the strike. But unfortunately, on Tuesday, they indicated they can't speak to us. And we've improved our offer. We improved it last night again to try and avert the strike.
What is that offer that you've put in the table?
We started originally, because of affordability, we started at 0%. We moved from 0% to 5.9%. However, we don't have the funding. We initially proposed to them that we will pay them the back pay at the end of April 1st, and then for 6 months, and the balance of that at the end of October. We will increase their base pay by 5.9% from the 1st of April next year. We even have gone further yesterday and said, but we'll pay it in March. We will always also effect the increase in March as well. And we will then, over the next 5 months, pay the balance.
Yeah.
So we've been moving we've moved 3 times at this stage, and the union sticking to their guns at 8%, which we can't afford.
Mr. Fredericks, not to belabor the point, but I think it's quite a critical statement that's coming from the Public Enterprises Minister. How do you think the message, SAA is not too big to fail, is going to land with unions, particularly given the fact that I think they have been almost on tenterhooks because there is this message that this is merely a vanity project, it must be shut down anyway?
Yeah, I think the unions need to seriously think about it. I think I made the statement, if we continue with this, the company will fail. It's for us to make sure that it doesn't fail, because if there is no fiscus availability for bailouts. We're busy negotiating critical funding with the lenders. This doesn't help the process. So we're putting out the request to the unions. We've arranged with the CCMA now. We've got the commissioner. We have discussions with them tomorrow, and we've invited them to those discussions to see if we can't get to break the deadlock and move forward.
Mr. Fredericks, when last did you present a set of audited financial statements? When last did this end?
In 2017.
2017. What happened to the 2018?
Unfortunately, for 2018 and 19, we cannot, because we haven't complied with our going concern. And that's 2 parts to that. The first part in getting the right funding, and that's the challenge. That's why we're here today. The second part is in terms of improving our performance. We've made some traction with that, but we need to do more. We have employed certain resources. You would understand we brought in the 350s.
Is it fair for unions to bear the brunt of mismanagement and misappropriation of funds by executives who've been running this airline for years?
I think there's a history to it, and we can make, at this stage where we are now, we can decide that we close our eyes and we will just go deeper in that. We've agreed there was mismanagement, there was state captures, there are certain people that hasn't done what they're supposed to.
Those who've been involved in state capture, have they been taken to court? Have you, the new executive, taken them to the courts or to law enforcement in order for them to be taken through law enforcement procedures?
We've gone to Parliament. We've reported that the number of cases where we have taken actions, where we fired people, we have final disciplinary issues against them. Some people resigned before we could do anything in terms of that. We've also handed over to the SIU and the walks. So there's a process in place. It's not like management hasn't done anything. Anything that we give over to the walks and SIU, we can't do anything internally. So for anyone to say nothing has been done, I think is just totally incorrect. Can we do more? Yes, you can always do more. We're bringing in the required skill. But you remember, if a company has been under pressure for the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's not something that happens in a year. It takes a time to get through. And if I must quote you example, take Telkom. It took Telkom 6 years to turn around. You can look now today, it's a different company. And everybody must sacrifice in that process.
John Fredericks, thank you very much for making the time to speak to us here.
Okay.
Thanks indeed.
Thanks
for
very
making
much.
the time to talk to us. He is the acting Chief Financial Officer for SAA.